Thank you, Sarah.
Make some more
So
space.
I wonder, I'm just going to ask a very brief question just to sort of, well, see where we get in the conversation. And it's a really quick one. A scale of 1 to 5, where are each of you in terms of optimism for women founders and investors at the moment? And 1 being terrible and 5 being utopia. And I want to see if we can move the dial over the next 45 minutes. So I've got a 4 from Seb. What have I got? That Cynthia, is that a 3?
4, I think.
3.
Oh, no, 3. Sorry, yeah.
3, good. I want to see the Gallic pessimism there. And 4. Okay, bit of it's good. So no one's at either extreme, so we can't move anyone all the way over. But that's okay. Good to know. I'll come back to that if I remember at the end. So Giovanna and Seb, you both mentioned that you've started businesses somewhat foolhardily in the middle of recessions. I think, Giovanna, you managed to do it twice, which is that's brilliant. So I wonder if you could just spend a few moments, each of you, delving into some of the specific lessons in there. It'd be good to hear. And I'm particularly obviously interested in both the female and, in your case, Seb, the couple founder point of view.
Shall I go first?
Absolutely, yeah.
I launched Fortissima, as it was. It then became Forte Communication. When my husband lost everything and our daughter was a month old, and I realised I had to go back to work, which I wasn't going to do with a new baby. So you sit and think, right, what can I do? I know what I can do. I can service the industry I've been working in, which was trade exhibitions. So I rang everyone I knew and said, if I provide support services, will you give me work? And they said yes. So I actually had no plan other than finding a way of earning money to keep a roof over our heads at the time. But that worked incredibly well. And I did very well. And the company then evolved into PR, by which time the children were older and I got an office in Soho, and that was great fun. But I think I would hesitate to overthink. If you have a business you want to launch, or you have reasons you want to do it, don't overthink it. Think about the basics that you want to do. Can you achieve them? Yes, well then just get cracking. Because if you look for problems, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So
I think
that's what I would urge.
I think the question from same with Giovanna, I'm sure is your experience, Simon, it wasn't really an age issue at all. It was never really relevant to our decision making. There was certainly for Kath, my wife, but then my partner and I, we felt this was just the right risk to take. You know, we looked at corporate world and saw that as being a relatively tedious grind with a limited pathway in terms of freedom to choose what to do and to grow. And also no one was doing what we felt was needed in the sector that we were in. So it wasn't really a hugely thought out set of points. It was just, there's a space. We have the energy. We don't have that. So we didn't at that stage have children. So there was no, in a sense, risk. In fact, we used to get told a lot. I know of other business owners on the call would feel this way. Everyone tells me that, oh, you're a high risk taker. We actually thought setting up your own company was a lower risk than being an employee of Goldman's or McKinsey. People on the call, I know. I mean, you simply don't know your future when there's another retrenchment or a change in direction. Next thing you know, you get your P45. At least we had line of sight on our business if we worked really hard. So I think that was important to us.
I agree. And I think, I mean, the point at which I had Forte Communication, I was doing very well. My brother invented PZ Midstream and asked me if I would help. And I looked at that and I thought, hey, this is really interesting. Let's do this. I didn't know about healthcare. I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know how to do any of that. I did know a bit about product design. But again, it's not a case of overthinking. It's you look at it and you say, this needs to happen. I have the energy and the wherewithal to do it. So I'm going to get on with it. And I mean, I've been doing this now for 30 years, which makes me probably pretty unemployable, but I can't think of anything worse than being an employee. Yeah.
It's a vocation. It's definitely a vocation. And if anyone comes and tells you it's a lifestyle choice to run your own business, I invite you all, and you know this, sometimes I punch them, because it is not, if this is a lifestyle, then you're calling me an idiot, and it's not. It's hard work, but it's a different set of control. Anyway, that's my comments.
Okay, Thanks, guys. Right, Cynthia, I want to turn to some of the things that you said, and forgive me, but you sounded a note of a little bit of caution stroke pessimism, I think reflected in your optimism score of 3. Actually, I would have said that you were going for 2 from what you said. I was particularly intrigued, and Sarah threw in some questions to you on this, but about how the current situation you think has affected deal flow with regard to female-founded businesses, and what do you think is going on there? I mean, and if you've got any data or anecdotes and thoughts about why.
So I'll answer the score thing. I was going for 2 because I feel the situation is a 2, but I feel that as a group we can make it a 3, and I think you should always account for, you know, what the situation is going to be once you've impacted it. The question on deal flow, that's an interesting one, because I saw the comment, and I'm very pleased to know that we've got more deal flow coming to Angel Academy, because that's great news. That means that, you know, people at least know that Angel Academy is out there, and whether it's investors telling entrepreneurs go there, or entrepreneurs just knowing from the get-go to go there, I think that's great news. And I'd love to know from you guys, how much do you think is coming from referrals? And how much of it is coming directly from entrepreneurs just knowing. On our side, it's interesting. I'm not sure. We're very early stage, so obviously it's you know, we see people coming to us at Founders Factory, you know, when they are either they already have an MVP and they need to accelerate, or you know, they are pre-product, pre-MVP, and they come to us. So like very early stage. And we've seen much less female. We've seen much less female entrepreneurs, but we've also seen much less female entrepreneur in residence. So for the people who may not know, an entrepreneur in residence would be people we would be hiring for the studio. So businesses that would be starting from scratch. And initially we would have seen not 50-50, but we have a good base. And I think we see less. I don't know, maybe they do not want to take risks right now. Maybe the comfort of a paycheck and a company is just reassuring, although we've seen it, you know, no one is necessarily safe right now. So the reason why is kind of unknown. I think we're just, you know, we are in it, so we're not really analyzing why, we're just observing it and trying to compensate by being a bit more entrepreneurial on our end, to go out to find, you know, more female candidates on the studio side and more female entrepreneurs to invest in. I can't tell you why exactly just yet. Maybe we'll know a bit more in a few months.
No, it's very interesting. I mean, just to you asked about where the deal flow we're seeing. I'd say that it's coming from exactly the same place as it did previously. It's both from introductions and referrals, and a lot still coming in cold. So I guess word is out there that we're here, which is good. The other thing I wanted to ask you that you said in there is about the fact that you think it's become more difficult for women to reach out to investors at this point, and I'm intrigued by that.
Yeah, so there have been a few initiatives, and I don't want to ignore them because that would be very unfair. There've been a few initiatives, you know, by a few VCs to say, hey, there are no events anymore, so, you know, we will have office hours, and some of the office hours have been for female entrepreneurs. So I don't want to say that there are no opportunities at all, because that would be not true and unfair. But if you think about it, you know, a lot of male entrepreneurs are just very bold. You know, they'll stalk. I've heard great stories of people stalking VCs. They know where they go get their coffee. They know where they're gonna go golfing. They know where they're biking, and they're just stalking them and, like, you know, conveniently getting in, saying hi, and after 2 minutes pitching their idea. And, you know, I don't see many female entrepreneurs having those stories. They feel a bit more awkward. Maybe Giovanna disagrees on this.
Well, I used to be a bit nervous about approaching investors, because, you know, you kind of think, oh, I'm the little founder and they're the big investor. But I got our industry partner, who's put in $500,000 and has got another $500,000 to go early next year. We were talking to them about sales and distribution in the States. And I was in the bathroom night and I thought, they must have money. So I looked them up on Companies House, and they did. So I wrote to them and said, you know, you're very interested in what we're doing. We're going to add value to your business. So do you have a pot of money you might consider investing? And they said yes. Now, it took 8 months to negotiate that, and you have to kind of stand your ground, because where they see that you need the money, anyone will sort of try and get the upper hand. But I think once investors see that you're clear about what you want, that you're clear about your intention, and you have something to offer, you're not asking a favor, you're offering to make them money. And you mustn't forget that. You really mustn't lose sight of that. You're offering an opportunity that they're very lucky to be able to consider and either accept or reject. That doesn't matter, but they're lucky to have the opportunity, because you don't know all the people that they might be working, against or, competing with. So I think we have to have a bit more pride in what we do, and a bit more dignity about it than we're often made to feel. You've got to do song and dance acts in front of all these people. And I mean, I've talked about a charitable idea that I had attached to the business once, and an investor, oh, you want to give all our money away before you've made it? Are you a champagne socialist? You got out there, and I just said, no, I can't afford champagne, and call me a carver socialist. And he wasn't very happy about that. But, you do get asked ridiculous questions by people, and you can be made to feel like, not great about yourself, and we have to really build that pride in ourselves and recognize that we have something to offer that no one else has.
What I would add, sorry, just as on that, I hear you, Cynthia, but I also would add, maybe from the position that you're in, it's actually kind of off-putting, male or female, but definitely when I've talked to female founders, the VC world is not an easy world to talk to. And it's not an easy world for an early stage company. It seems to start with a lot of rejection of everything. You're bad at this, you've got the right scale, you never come back next year, sort of thing. And whatever type of business you are, that's a hard craft, and it's not necessarily worth it at times to try through that. One of the things I'm glad of, ironically, is that we never really sold any of our equity. We didn't do a raise. It meant that the exit was so much better, but that's by the by. But I would disagree with the sense that female founders are not necessarily going to pursue opportunities. It's just pursued differently. There's certainly a definite need to present credentials. So my partner, her way of winning business was actually to be on stage and present cases and present the knowledge set, and then people would come to her to talk about the business itself, which is a different way of doing it and perfectly sound, but that's just differences of approach. So I have a more optimistic view about the current condition of entrepreneurs, business owners, male and female, responding to the market condition. There will be those that won't respond well to the situation and drift away, but then these situations are the ones that make sure that your business is actually robust. But time will tell whether it's been a bigger impact than we think right now.
Okay, thanks. We've had a question from the floor from Jason, which is actually a response, I think, to you, Seb, and Giovanna. You both talked about not overthinking business, I think. And Jason asked, do you think that the last 20 years of Y Combinator pitches, which I think he's using generically there, but we all know what he means, that style of pitches encouraged overthinking of ventures? Has that become a problem?
I don't know what the Y thing means. What does that mean?
Well, just a sort of very slick, very prepared, and somewhat templated style of
that does slightly annoy me, because people tend to look at that and not the content. I mean, I'm no PowerPoint queen, so I've now got someone else to do it for me, which is ridiculous, because I can't make something look sort of jazzy. I can present, I can talk my way, talk hind neck of a donkey, but I do think everything is a little bit macho, and it's all a little bit thrusty and shiny, and I think people are actually missing the content and the core of what someone has to offer.
I'd sort of challenge it. I mean, there seems to be in an Anglo culture this absolute rejection of the notion of marketing being anything other than bad, or I mean, you can see a good presentation, and you can communicate it well, and that does have a force. I think probably one of the most impressive pitches I have seen in the last 5 years was one that was presented at Angel Academy, which subsequently invested in. And Emma was great. I mean, it was a very coherent pitch. Was it classy and glitzy? And probably it was, but that's okay, because the other ones have often been quite poor, not just at Angel Academies, but I do think that there's a piece behind it, which we as investors, there was a sort of running joke, I thought, perhaps 2 or 3 years ago, that if you could do a good PowerPoint, you could assume that your valuation was 2 million. That was it. It didn't even matter if you'd done anything. It was just a really great PowerPoint. And there's a lot to be said to the male investor community who are running into those opportunities and going, it's a great PowerPoint, so let's invest, which is ridiculous. You have to dig deeper. That's why I like working alongside female investors, because they dig deeper. They go, and what is the business behind it? But there is an element of get the right presentation. I mean, I think it's still important. You've got to sell.
Our very first money that came from the London Development Agency, my brother and I pitched them together, and he demonstrated the PZ prototype we had with a catheter leg bag attached by a wire coat hanger to his old music stand. And he clipped the bottle underneath, and we showed how PZ worked. Now, you know, everyone was massively impressed. They all came out and looked, and they loved it, and they invested. But the funniest thing was, because it was all splashing into a metal bowl, as soon as we'd finished, they rose en masse and rushed to the loo. So you've got to be quite careful about how you do things like this. But it worked. I mean, yes, so I agree with you. Sometimes you've got to do something a little bit different. If you have that thing that's different, and show it off.
Yeah.
Cynthia, are you seeing sort of overly templated approaches to pitching companies?
Yes, we see it, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, in the sense that you got to know what the rules of the game is, and for us, just to make sure I put the right framework. We do work with startups, you know, who should be VC backable. So if it's a lifestyle business, there's nothing wrong with that, but this is not at work what I can invest in. So knowing that I have to invest into startups that, you know, would need to be VC backable down the line, I have to know that they can do a PowerPoint. I have to know that they understand the concept of a narrative, that they know how to sell themselves, that they know how to sell their company, and that they understand that this is a journey they're going to be, you know, embarking on. So if they don't have a great pitch, is it a turn off? No, because I mean, our job is also to help them to get there. But if it's really bad and they don't understand how important it is, I'm going to be wondering if this is the right person to work with. Because, you know, I can't change the rules of the game. You know, if you're going to be pitching to a VC, you may be lucky and doing a demo at a dinner, or, you know, being able to just talk about your idea, which is great. But at some point, they're still going to want to see a deck. So I kind of got to know that you understand the concept of a deck. And there's a few things that you can't really, you know, get rid of. I mean, you'll need to see, you know, what is the problem statement, what is the solution, who is the team, you know, what's the competition, and you know, what is going to be your model. I mean, there's a few things that you just can't get away from. So yes, we haven't seen much disruption in the way we pitch in the past 40 years, but I'm not sure it means to be disrupted. I think, you know, if you want to get people's attention, it's on you to think about, you know, how to demonstrate your product and demonstrate your ideas, not just by a pitch deck, but I still think that you need to be able to have a decent pitch deck.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the, you know, in all pitches of whatever shape or size, one of the most important things, certainly I know that our group always interrogate, is the financials for the next 3, even up to 5 years. And I'm mindful of the moment that I'm looking through. I think in the last 2 months, I've seen over 80 businesses all making these kind of projections. And I wonder what your shared thoughts are on, both from a founder's point of view and an investor's, how realistic can we be about those kind of projections given the current climate?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be, it's unlikely to be realistic whatsoever. I think the reason why we look at it, and again, I'm very early stage, so I probably think it's even more unrealistic at that stage than it would be pre-series A, for example. The only reason we still ask for it and we look at it, it's more for validation of the market they're going after. And then it's more looking at how they've thought it through. So it's more about what is the logic, what type of assumptions they've made, You know, have they understood, you know, that there could be here an incremental cost that would have a consequence, you know, done here? You know, are the numbers matching what is in the deck? Is it coherent? So for us, it's more of a demonstration of how the team works as a team, because usually they have someone doing the numbers and the other one pitching. So do they talk to each other? Because that says a lot about, you know, how they're going to be working together. You know, if they can't work together around putting a pitch together, that says a lot about how they work together, period. So we still ask for it, we still look at it, we still question it, but more because it tells a lot about the dynamic of the team and how they have thought through not just their business and their solution, but the market and how they're going to grow. But the numbers themselves, I don't think I've ever had a company that, you know, even did the numbers they claim that they would be making.
They always exceed them hugely, right?
Of course, especially Angel Academy ones.
Of course. But
Yeah.
Giovanna, Seb, any thoughts on how the hell you got financials in a time like this?
You first, Giovanna.
I think the financials can be tricky. We look at our market size, which is absolutely vast. And 10% of that market size in the UK of around 60 million, 6 million urine samples, you know, to me, that doesn't seem like a particularly ambitious figure. But if we put that in, some potential investors will say you're being too ambitious, and others will say you're being too prudent. And everyone has a view on what you're doing and what your market size is. You know, if every woman who's pregnant used between 8 and 12 PZs, we'd be making loads of money. But we can't sort of necessarily predict that. So we tend to be very prudent. And you know, hope that we're under promising and we can massively over deliver. That's the only way I can do it, because no one's done what we've done before. That's the other thing. We're a world first. We're a complete game changer. So how do we know? Okay,
Seb, did you have anything to add there? Or?
Well, I think the whole financials piece, both sides are guilty of being carried away. I think, speaking as the angel investor side, we need to be reset a bit on our expectations, because we've sort of forced, I mean, not direct individually, but as a cluster, forced companies to become even more sort of extraordinary in their claims. And it seems crazy that in a way we all look at those numbers and go that they're not real and never going to be real. I agree with you that Cynthia's position, which is what it does show is a demonstration of thinking, which is important to assess the process and people. But that's also quite hard to do. I wonder if there's better ways to do it than just to put some fake numbers up. The other side of it is we also really need to be clear with entrepreneurs, business owners, about how they come to their valuations. And again, it's a reset. They've been, as companies, getting way ahead of themselves in terms of assumptions. The amount of firms that I see that are within 2 years of creation, but have expectations of having $100 million of revenue in 4 years or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know if everyone just sits down and thinks from them. Have you any idea how hard it is to get to that figure and how many companies have ever done that? And in that time frame, it's threading the needle isn't even going to describe it properly. So I would feel good if we could challenge, and coming back to my point about good, honest businesses, I'm much more inclined to see a company that says to me, you know, we're going to make $1 million this year, and we're going to make 3 million next year, and we're going to make 4 million the year after, you know, and it's not going to be the next Microsoft, but it's going to be a 3X. It's going to be a 5X. Yeah. And what I find is really important is female founders are much better. And we were the same, but you know, my word is my bond. If I'm going to do 3X, I'm going to do 3X. Because if the spreadsheet and financials are completely unbelievable, what's that setting up? Everyone's not sticking to their promises. You know, I can set up a company and they're going to say 100 times their earnings. They know they're never going to do it. It doesn't matter. There's no accountability. So we all need to reset on that one. And again, a situation like now might help us there.
Mm.
Although, Giovanna, to be clear, we are looking for a 10X at least. Okay, so just don't listen to him.
So am I. I mean, I would say about the valuation, you know, I've looked at our valuation as investment to date, know-how, IP, and you know, the fact that we're already in market. Now, some people will say you've overvalued, and others go, no, just double it or treble it. You know, everyone wants to know that you're worth a lot. And I just think, well, what's the point of doing that? You know, I think when it comes to valuation, you have to look at it honestly and pragmatically. Otherwise, you're lying to yourself as well as everybody else, and that's utterly pointless.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions in from the floor from Bridget and Rena. These are more on the investment side. Perhaps over to you, Cynthia and Seb. So, so two questions. As investors, what are you looking for in relation to a business's IP? And Bridget's asked about any tips to give any women thinking of taking the plunge to start angel investing, specifically at this, for the first time in the current climate.
Okay, so on the IP, what are we looking at? So first, we're definitely looking at IP. It's very important, and because we're early stage, obviously they don't always necessarily have a patent or something. So we look at the competitive landscape. It's important to understand what else is being done, and then we try to understand where is the unfair advantage. So we don't necessarily just look at IP because it can be a bit restrictive, but what is the unfair advantage? And because we are an accelerator, can we bring an unfair advantage as well? Because if we can't win another, then usually we don't make the investment. The IP can come from different things. There is obviously the technology itself. So it could be that, they come up with an amazing algorithm and no one else has, or they've discovered, how to do, pure cyber through quantum, the holy grail. I mean, you have them once in a while that have a serious IP with a, patent, the way people understand IP. Now, there are more things to look at, which is sometimes it's not that clear yet, but there is something that is an unfair advantage and they do have it. And therefore that for me kind of qualifies as, IP in a more holistic way. Because if there is something that, a team has that another team with the same amount of money in the same garage, wouldn't have it, therefore would be at a disadvantage, then I'm thinking this is worth investing in. And this is worth, pushing. So I would say when you do look at IP, don't be too restrictive, because it could be that they have, they have the knowledge that other people don't have. And I'm thinking about, to give you an example, in satellite images. If you've been in the army and you know how to analyze certain images, trust me, there are actually not that many people in the world, who know how to do that. So that may not be an actual patent, but it is a skill set that is definitely an IP as far as I'm concerned. It could be that, this is coming from a corporate. They are leveraging an unleveraged asset from a corporate, and no one would have access to that. So for me, that's also IP. So there is different ways of looking at it. And I would definitely encourage investors to broaden their horizons when they look at it, so that they don't miss out on companies that could actually be special. And then the second question was around
just general tips really on women looking at taking a plunge into angel investing at the moment.
Yes, so I actually think it is a great moment to do it. Some people may be thinking, well, there is too much uncertainty, so this is probably not the right time. I think, don't do it alone. If it's the first time that you're doing it, don't do it alone. That would be the first tip. I mean, you will learn and you'll be great, but, just tag along with a syndicate. That's probably the best thing to do initially, so that you learn with others and that you don't get burned. But if you have the financial means to have a little bit of liquidity that you can afford to put in investments that are high risk, I would say this is the perfect time, because there will be a lot of companies that won't be getting funded from other traditional ways. They will be cheaper than they would have been 6 months ago. So that's also the right time to be buying or putting money into startups. And this is also the opportunity for you to help. So angel investment is not just about the money. Angels have a role in the ecosystem, in coaching, in mentoring, in opening doors, in being there also for support. The life of an entrepreneur, and Seb and Giovanna will be speaking about that. It's up and downs that are, extremes that unless you have been an entrepreneur, you really don't know what it is. And you do need someone around you that can understand that and can tell you it's going to be okay. Like, this is not the end of the world. You're entitled to your emotions. It's okay for you to be upset right now, but trust me, it is going to be okay. And I think a lot of angels, you know, have that ability to be able to be there for those entrepreneurs. And that's very helpful because we are really the gap, you know, between nothing and potentially the VC world. And this transition is very difficult to navigate. And if we're not there to hold their hand and to prepare them and then to help them get to the VCs, then they're even less likely to get there. So I think our role is very important. And I think much more people could be angels more than people could be than they think. So it's just educating others and telling them, you know, you don't need to have billions. You don't need to have done X, Y, and Z. You know, I know you, I like you, I trust you, I know you could do it. Just tag along, meet other angels, see what it's actually about, and start slow, start small, and start with others.
What I would add to that, just for those that are thinking about it from the experience that we have, and is also make a strategic plan about how you want to deploy this component of your worth. Typically, it's somewhere between 10 and 20% of your total worth in investable terms. We, for example, we have a plan. It's around 30 companies. We have 5 verticals. We're putting 6 per company. I mean, it sounds very planned, but you know, we get exactly what the fit is? But each vertical is different. But there's a diversification in the investment. There's a different type of business models that we're looking at. They'll have to be data-rich companies, tech-rich companies. But the verticals are all around a specific theme that my wife and I are very, very keen on. And they're in verticals that aren't ones that we were in historically. So that is important, as Cynthia says, to go alongside with people that have been in the space because they're your travel guide to an extent. But do think longer term than just the investment in front of you, because it's got to make sense collectively rather than just a series of mishmash investments that you look back later and somewhat embarrassingly explain, well, yeah, I've got this cluster of things. I don't really know what they're doing, but they're doing okay, sort of. Actually, if you get it right, structured, it's similar to the VCs. You've got a plan, you've got a process, you've got a system of investment that's like any other portfolio. But that's the only piece that I would add to it, which is, I don't think that many people do.
Okay. Thank you both. So, Cynthia, you brought up the issue of the future fund, and I just wondered from really all three of you, if any of you have got any thoughts about whether there's a role for government or the state at the moment to help the situation, or whether, you know, and I say this as a classical liberal, or whether it's just its job to get out of the way, but it's you know, there's a lot going on at the moment, and I'm not clear what's helping us and what isn't, and is anything that could be done?
Well, more can always be done. I don't think we'll see necessarily much more coming from the government for tech right now. The only thing that we may see, because the Future Fund was oversubscribed on day one. So I think what we could see is more money being deployed, but the rules won't be different. So I don't think it's going to be helping either angels or female entrepreneurs right away. We may see more money going through Innovate UK and so on. So maybe through grants that could be helpful for female entrepreneurs. So I would say no, I don't think we can necessarily expect more from the government, but why should we? I mean, I think they've done a lot already, for good or for bad. You know, they're struggling as much as, and they're trying their best. I think it's about what can we do. We are a nation. We shouldn't be always relying on the government to do something, you know. So I would say, what can we do as a community of investors, as a community of entrepreneurs, as a community of amazing people who understand business and who can help other businesses? And I think the question is more there, you know, how do we get all those resources and organize them towards helping the people who need the help right now?
Okay.
I would also suggest that where you do need more money, you need top-up funding, before you go anywhere else, go to your existing investors, because you will be amazed at how many of them want to see you succeed and understand that you need a top-up at certain times. And at times like this, you know, I know we've had quite a lot of response at the end of last year and beginning of this, well, particularly beginning of this, when we were closing part of our investment round that Angel Academy helped us with, a number of existing investors said, oh, right, yes, of course, you know, here's a certain amount of money. So always ask your own shareholders first. And friends and family. I mean, a number of times I've written to lots of friends and family and said, I hope you don't mind me writing, but we're looking for funding. And I thought, you know, you might want to get involved. And I've raised almost all, well, a good 3.5 million through, you know, tapping friends and family and talking to people and get it being introduced. I don't have a very high regard for the formal ways of doing things, as if you didn't guess. But you know, I think you just have to be a bit bold, really.
Simon, I don't really have much to add on that, but I'm really interested in the question from, or the statement from Ursula. I'd love to answer or give some thought.
Yeah, go for your life.
I mean, on the fund government support, I've lived through 25 years running business. I just have a resigned view that whatever company we had, it was never going to be viable for any type of outside support. If you can't make it yourself, you can't make it. So, but that's aside. So this, yes, Ursula, yes, I agree with you. I think that there's going to be a higher uptick in ESG businesses with a more sustainable drive to them. I mean, we've already seen that coming through over the last 4 or 5 years. I also think female founders are going to be pushing that agenda far better and far more than male-only investors. And I'd be entrepreneurs. I'd be sort of challenging male-only entrepreneurs to really see the depth of their commitment on sustainability. But I think as a concept of what COVID has done is made investors as well as business owners reconnect and reconsider the type of companies that they're making and the contribution they're having, not just from a profitability perspective, but to a society perspective. Now, we should always be arguing for that. And there are lots of other factors behind that. But yes, I think it's going to become a bigger issue now. And it's a topic that we should probably have separately at the Angel Academy, because we can lead that debate as an investor group. People are looking for answers about where that's going as a direction.
Okay, that sounds like a whole future session for us, I think.
I agree with Seb.
Cynthia. Yeah.
No, I agree with Seb. I know it doesn't happen very often that I agree with him, but I definitely agree with him on that point.
Look, we can't be quite a different point of view.
We can't end on a note of agreement, however, particularly between Cynthia and Seb. So look, I'm aware that we are pretty much out of time, but I'd like to ask just a sort of final question, really. Firstly, have you changed between 1 and 5 in terms of your pessimism as a result of talking to each other? And the sort of silver bullet question really is, if you could see any change, you know, environmentally, in terms of the government, in terms of business practice, investment practice, or whatever, over the next 6 months, given the trying times we're in, what would you like to see happen to benefit both investors and founders?
I'd like to see a much higher EIS rate, so to make angel investing, you know, a lot more attractive. I don't see why we can't do that. 70-80%.
Okay, don't think you won't get an argument from us on that. and 1 to 5 in terms of where are you on pessimism, Giovanna? Before.
Oh, I don't like pessimism.
Yeah, still a 3.
Too much time.
Cynthia, still a 3, and
yeah,
you
it's a positive 3.
Good, and you were positive. Listen, it's a Galectoire, right? So that's as good as we get. And silver bullet from you, or you're gonna go with Giovanna's EIS threshold? Hello?
I think that's for you, Cynthia.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was for you, Seb.
No, that's for you. No, I want your silver bullet.
Oh, it is for me.
It is, yeah.
Sorry, I really thought it was for Seb. My silver bullet. I mean, sure, for EIS and CIS, we could do more. I don't see that changing. I wish I could say that, you know, I wish we could have more than the future fund. It's just that I already know that's not going to happen. So I don't want to be unrealistic, especially because we said that women tend to be more realistic. I think what I would want to say are, you know, I would want to see are realistic valuations, because I think if we do settle on that, and by realistic, I mean it both ways. I mean it's the entrepreneurs being realistic and not too greedy, but also the VCs not being, I'm not going to swear, so I'm going to try to use not being unfair. They shouldn't be unfair, and they shouldn't be taking advantage of the situation to give too many haircuts to valuation. So I think if we could settle on fair valuations on both sides, I think it would already be a big advancement, because then, you know, people would be much more likely to move forward. And I think the realization of some investors and entrepreneurs that they should be focusing on businesses that make a difference, can have an impact in the world, whether, you know, it's, you know, quantified or not for ECGs, is also good to see and important to see. So I'm happy to see that change right now.
Right, thank you. And clearly, haircuts on valuations are the only haircuts that are happening at the moment, right? So, and Seb?
Well, I'm conscious of time, Simon.
So
I would like to see, as a result of everything that's been going through this last quarter, is a better sense of humility and just good behavior on the part of business owners asking for money when they receive it from investors. You know, there is a quantum that investors give, and it means something to them when they give it. So I think better investor relations with angels. There's certainly a bit of a dismissiveness. You know, oh, I'll go back and get another 25 from that angel because it's kind of easy. I mean, we had a conversation earlier today where that was, the VC told the company that we invest in that that's what they should do, to do a whip round, as if we're just ready to do that. And I just think that just completely disrespects we're a funding source, you know, and we need to get some courtesy back. I think that's really important.
I agree.
Okay, great. And are you still a +4?
Oh yeah.
Cynthia talked you down to a 3.5.
It's interesting. Entrepreneurs, as a view, employees are always a why now, and entrepreneurs are a why not. So, you know, entrepreneurs are always like, let's just do it, let's go for it. And you've got to be that, otherwise you'd probably collapse into tears.
Right. Well, on that positive note, thank you all. I'm going to hand back to Sarah, who has turned into the Angel Academy logo. Sarah, are you there?
I am here.
And just before, I just wanted to say, Sarah, we got a couple of questions that we didn't get around to, but it's quite interesting that we definitely moved into questions around ESG and sustainability and philanthropy. So I'm guessing that might be something for us to organise.
I just wanted to say on behalf of Angel Academy, thank you to all of our panellists for a really, really super interesting conversation. And thank you to everyone who dialed in this afternoon. We'll send a follow-up email. We have got another event happening this time next week, so we'll send details of that by email. So thank you, everyone. And thank you for hanging on for an extra 4 minutes.
Thank you for having us,
Great stuff.
Simon.
Oh,
pleasure.
Thank you all.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.